everybody, my name is Michelle and this is Sweet Pea Farm NY, and today I'm going to show you guys how to needle felt these sweet and easy little hedgehogs. I did a class on these the other night and I promised the class that I would make a tutorial so that they could go back and watch it. And in the class in 2 hours we did one individual hedgehog, but the kits that I make that come with the class or that you can purchase through our Etsy shop, which is just Sweet Pea Farm NY on Etsy, you get enough to make 2 or 3 depending on how large you choose to make them, little hedgehogs. So you can make 2 that go together, or you can make individual ones, whatever you want. So make sure that if you like this video, or if you want to keep learning more about needle felting and sheep and the whole process of wool, that you hit the subscribe button so that you can stay up to date with what's going on. Click the bell and that will notify you every time a new video comes out. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to leave them in the comments below. I check them all and do eventually get back to everybody. So let's get started making these. So whether you get the kits in a class or you order them from the Etsy store, they come in a box like this. You open up your kit, and if we do the hedgehog kit, which is what we're making today, there's also a sheep kit and a pig kit on our Etsy shop that you get a box of the fiber in the materials to make that item, which we have tutorials for online. And it comes with the needle felting sponge. This is just a sponge that I get at a local box store. It works well for traveling. I like the shape of it. I like the crazy colors. They come in like greens and purples and everything. You'll get 2 needles that are always stuck in the end of your sponge for safekeeping. And when you're working with your pieces, I always say keep your needles stuck in the sponge, away from where you're working, so that they don't roll off the table. Because if you just put them on the surface that you're working on, or God forbid your lap or something, they can so easily get brushed off and end up on the floor, and that's dangerous. The ends of these needles are very brittle, they're very fine, and they have little barbs that do the work for you. Those working ends that are the tapered part down are extremely easy to break. So when you're stabbing your fiber, you want to go in and out in the same direction that you went in. Otherwise, if you go in and try to come up in a different direction or try to finagle the wool with the end of the needle, it's going to break the tip of the needle. So it's very easy to break them, especially when you're new. So you want to just make sure to keep that all in mind. The 2 needles that you'll get, one is a bigger or coarser needle. That needle is for forming your core shapes that we're going to use the core wool with. And then the smaller needle is for doing the details and the outer colors. So in your kit, you're going to get at least a solid ounce of core wool to make the body shape and the nose. And then you'll get various other colors to put underneath and on the back and make your flower or heart, whichever you so choose. So let's get started. The first shape that we're aiming for is what I call the chicken nugget shape. And it's just a dense shape that you're going to roll tightly, trying to keep the wool tightly rolled. Then we're going to stab along the edge of the roll, then all the way around, trying to make it kind of a thinner on one side, like a flattish chicken nugget. And then, so as we stab around, then when we get done with that, we're going to go on the top, bring all our fibers into the center, and then flatten out the bottom. So let's get started on that. And I'm just going to grab what's probably a third of the fiber that's in the kit. Now you can make yours bigger or smaller if you want to make more or less of them. It just depends on what you want to do. And I just start by rolling it down, using both hands to hold lots of pressure to keep it tightly rolled, because the tighter I roll it, the less stabbing it's going to require when we're felting. If you make it really loose and puffy, then you're going to have to do lots and lots of stabbing. So I stopped rolling right here, so I'm going to just go up and down that final where the roll ended a few times, and that will hold the piece together if I let go of it for any reason. But I'm going to try to hold pressure on it pretty much through the entire time I'm stabbing. And I'm holding the piece flat with one finger to keep pressure, because I want this side to be kind of a flatter side, and then I'm going to go around the edges and keep those in shape. So this essentially is sculpting with wool. The piece of the needle that's tapered at the end is the only piece that does any work for you. Stabbing past that is okay in the core shape because you're going to be felting all the fibers within. So now I'm doing the flat bottom just by poking all the pieces into a flat shape. I'm gonna flip it over and do the other side, because I haven't done that yet. Holding pressure on the top again so that I can have kind of flat on both sides and then roundy on the edges. And you can see this needle's leaving really big poke marks, and that's okay because we're gonna cover all this up. This is just the underside, the under shape of the hedgehog. So we're just using this wool to make the shape underneath. So now I have my flat bottom and all that, and that happened pretty quickly. Now we take this fuzzy side and we take all the fibers and gently pull them to the center to make a dome shape, and then just encourage with our stabbing where we want it to make a domey shape on top. And you guys can keep felting this as much as you want. You can make this as dense or as fluffy as you want it to, but the denser you make it, the longer it's gonna last. If you make it pretty fluffy, then it's gonna pill up and fluff up and get ruined a lot easier. These are not good to have around cats or dogs. I always tell people to keep them up on a shelf.
Can I watch Polar Bears?
Yep, 1 minute. I always tell people to keep them up on a shelf or behind glass doors so that little hands and paws do not get a hold of them and tear them apart. I do let my kids play with some of them, but then they often have to be kind of refelted into shape. So, okay, now that we've helped my little one, we have our chicken nugget shape, and we're gonna make a simple shape for its nose to put underneath the color that we're gonna do. You just take a tiny tuft of the core wool. You're gonna make a fold down so that you have a even edge. Turn that sideways, turn down on an angle there, and an angle upturn to make a point. Then we're just gonna stab along that fold to hold it in place to keep that shape. And you can kind of stab all over it, but we want this to be a like a cone shape because we're gonna put this underneath for the hedgehog's nose. So we want it to hold the dimension. We don't want it to be flat really. And I'm just gonna stab some of the extra fluff into the shape to give it some sturdiness and some bulk. And then go along, you want it to be like a little mountain shape or something. It doesn't have to be particularly pointy, but just something that gives dimension for the nose. And you end up with like a little cone shape. So we're gonna take that and find our little chicken nugget, and we're gonna decide which side we want to be the front or back. At this point, they're the same, so it doesn't matter to me. And then I'm gonna place it about a third of the way up, kind of towards the top, and then just stab the fringe around to keep it into place. And again, this doesn't have to look perfect because we're gonna cover this up, so it doesn't really matter if we see the seam, if there's really big poke marks. It's not a big deal at this point because this is all getting covered up. This is just, that's why we call it core wool, because it goes in the core of the piece. So there we have that. When that's all done, you're gonna take the oatmeal color that came in your, I'm gonna take a small sheet of the oatmeal. It comes off and it's carded on bats, into bats. So I'm just gonna take a small thin piece of the oatmeal and lay it over the front, the part that just had the nose on it. And using the other needle, because I don't want the same giant poke holes, I'm gonna stab that all around on the front of the piece, covering up the nose and everything so that we have a nice smooth cover, and that's gonna hide those seams that you made with attaching the nose on. Just wanna stab it all over so that the whole thing is gonna hold into place. And you can take your time with this. This is not meant to be a fast craft. Even little things, usually take, the class took us 2 hours to do. So, if you're new to needle felting, it might take you more like half an hour, 45 minutes. But if you're not, and you're not quite as good at the rolling technique, then it could take you a couple of hours. So all the edges you just kind of want to tuck in and make them look a little bit neat. Make sure you cover the bottom edge, the side. You can go back, a little ways. We are going to cover the back with a different color, but you want to make sure that the edges meet, so don't just cover the very, very front. You want it to wrap around a little bit. So his nose is a little wonky looking. And you just sculpt, you shape it with the needle Anywhere you stab, it's going to make it indent or make the wool go in more. So just think about that when you're looking at things and how you want them to shape up. Just stab with the needle. We have the front covered. Now we're going to take the darker brown that comes in the kit and pull off about the same size sheet, because we're going to do the same thing, only now with the back. So this is going to be way too much wool. It just takes a little bit. A little bit goes a long way. And I'm going to fold my edge in to make a neat seam and felt and make sure that the two colors, the oatmeal and the dark brown, are meeting. On the bottom, I want to fold it in and make sure that I have a nice even line that goes across the bottom. Not that anybody's really going to look at the bottom, but it's just nice to have it. If you want to felt faster, you can take the two needles in the kit and hold them together, and they'll work together a little bit faster, because now you're doing twice as much felting with one poke. And they do make tools where this is the tool that I like the most to use. It's a clover pen tool. I don't sell these, but you can get them on Amazon, and it holds 3 needles, and you just want to make sure that they're the same three lengths and the same 3 gauges, so that whatever you're working on, it makes sense. You don't want to have like one big needle and 2 fine needles in there, because it would just be a weird feeling for felting. So you want to keep that bottom flat just by stabbing directly into it to encourage that flat shape. And I'm probably going to have too much, so as I get around here, I can just tear off excess to save for another one. Any extra, just save for the next one you make, or anything else you make. And then do the same thing on this side, where you fold the edge in to make it a nice even edge. Wrap any excess down onto the bottom. And then tack it all in on the back to make it nice and smooth. And you're going to want to take more time than I am on this. I'm just doing it very quickly for, you know, the purpose of the video. But you want to, you know, take your time and work along so that it all looks nice and even and smooth. And again, with the top, you want to encourage that dome shape still. Just go around and stab, stab, stab. Now, I didn't put enough wool towards the top for the face, so we're going to pick a little bit up like we just ripped off and make the shape for what I call the widow's peak on them, where it just comes down, you know, in between the ears there. So I'm just going to take this extra fluff, grab my finer needle, kind of measure where the middle of the nose is, and stab a line up from there. And then you're just going to make like what the top of a heart shape would look like with the brown. And you can always add in, you can often take off too if you put too much on. You can often, depending on how firmly you felted it already. I need to look at it, make sure that my little heart shaped tops are even. They're a little wonky, but I can fix that. It's a very forgiving craft, so it's fun because you know, you mess something up and it's not like you have to start all over like on a painting or something. You can often save it. So here's the basic shape so far, a little less felted than I normally would do, but we have the body with the nose that's, you know, dimensional, the back, and now we just have to do the ears and the feet. Those are a simple shape, and they're all for the same. They're little rounded on the top, very similar to the body, only tiny, and then they're fringy underneath for attaching. So we're going to want to make 4 of these. I'm going to do that once for you guys, and then I'll make the other 3 very quickly because I don't want to take forever. I'm going to even tear a little off that. So just a tiny tuft, and I'm using the tan color that's in the kit. Like I said, you can definitely switch up your colors. I know on the couple one I did like the tan as the background instead of oatmeal, and then did the oatmeal ears. You can do it any way you want to do it. But you just want to stab it flat on one side, encouraging that dome shape on the top and leaving the other side fringy. Then you want to peel it off. It's going to be kind of stuck on your sponge because you just stabbed it in there. Flip it over to felt the other side. Okay, now we have our 4 little shapes that we're gonna make the ears and feet, and we just have to attach them. When we're gonna put the ears on, you wanna make sure that you pick 2 of the shapes that look the closest in size, and we're gonna lay them flat on with the fringe facing backwards and stab that fringe right into the line that the dark meets the light. And you can make them as tall or short as you want to. And then, okay, now we wanna attach the other one just in the same way that we did before. Lay it flat down, stab it into the line where the dark meets the light. Get all that fringe stabbed in there. And then lay it back, and this way it keeps the front of your piece cleaner looking because all the fringe is behind it. And then you just want to make sure that you get them even. So ears are attached. Feet are just a matter of putting them on the bottom, the flat part, and stabbing them into place where you want them. You have to decide if you want to put them together with a heart, if you want to make 2, or if you're just going to make one with the flower. If you're doing the flower one, we're going to do that now. But if you do want to do one... Alright, so we're going to put the green where we want it to make a flower stem. Just make a little line in there, wherever you want it. Then you need your kit, which I've lost already. And I'm going to take a little bit of the pink from the kit and just make a little ball for the top of the flower. Put that on top of the green and stick that into place. Tiny, tiny bits of the tan to make arms. I'm just gonna roll a cylinder, make one arm that holds the flower stem, stab it into the dark brown and over, and then holding the stem just by going a little bit over the green. And then I'm gonna do the same on the other side just to make them even. Just a little empty arm. Now if you're doing the 2 with the heart, you would just stab the 2 pieces together on both sides and then put the heart in between and one arm going each way, which is how I did them here. So just one arm going into the middle to hold the heart. Now you want to take the black from your kit, or actually no, we're going to take the tan that we used for the ears. We're going to make another point, only this time we're going to felt this flat onto the face. That's going to go over the nose shape that you made with the point on the bottom. And you just want to felt this flat into the face and kind of a heart shape. It doesn't have to be a perfect heart. Okay, so we just want to finish up the shape. I'm sorry this video is choppy between my toddler and my bed storage space on my phone. It's not going very well, but 2 tiny eyes, just roll a tiny ball, place it in the top part of the heart on one side, the same on the other side. Trying to make them somewhat even. And then for the nose, you can make it an oval shape, a triangle shape, any shape you want. Kind of hold it in place to make sure it's where you want it to be. I like to make the nose and the eyes kind of all pretty close to each other, but they all are going to be different looking. That's what's fun about teaching the class, is seeing all the different outcomes. So there you guys have it. I hope that you enjoyed the video. I hope I helped you remember how to make them if you took the class. If you're interested in buying a kit, check out the Etsy shop. It's just Sweet Pea Farm NY on Etsy. And again, I'm sorry for all the choppiness of the video because there were lots of stops and starts with the storage and the toddler. So thank you guys all so much for watching. Remember to hit that subscribe button on your way out, and if you want, the link below will be in the description for the Etsy shop. Have a great rest of your day, guys.